The overhead lighting at Memorial Grace Hospital cast everything in that sterile, unforgiving white that made even the healthiest patients look halfway to death. I pushed my medication cart down the corridor, my sneakers squeaking against the polished linoleum with each step. Every movement sent a dull ache through my lower back, a persistent reminder that 32 wasn't as young as it used to feel, especially not after pulling double shifts 3 times this week. My fingers found the name badge clipped to my scrubs almost unconsciously. Grace Mitchell, RN. 6 years I'd worn that badge, and tonight, finally, there was something to celebrate. The promotion had come through. Charge nurse position on the pediatric oncology unit. Better hours, better pay, and most importantly, a schedule that meant I could actually be home for Gemma's bedtime more than twice a week. I glanced at my phone, checking the photo I'd set as my lock screen. Gemma at 6 years old, missing both front teeth, grinning at the camera with paint smeared across her cheek from art class. My daughter, my world, my reason for everything. The reason I'd left Derek 2 years ago when his drinking turned to rage. The reason I worked myself to exhaustion. The reason I kept fighting even when every bone in my body begged me to stop. Grace. Linda caught my arm as I passed the nurse's station, her eyes bright with excitement. I heard about the promotion. Charge nurse. That's incredible. Thanks, I said, managing a tired smile despite the exhaustion pulling at every muscle. Still feels surreal, honestly. You deserve it. God knows you've earned it. She squeezed my hand. Are you doing anything to celebrate? Please tell me you're doing something other than collapsing on your couch. I laughed, the sound coming out more hollow than I'd intended. I was planning on a hot date with leftover Chinese food and whatever's on Netflix. But Linda's question had planted a seed. Why shouldn't I celebrate? Mrs. Chen downstairs had already agreed to watch Gemma tonight because I'd been scheduled for the late shift, a shift I'd just been relieved from early because of the promotion. I had 3 hours before I needed to pick up my daughter. 3 hours that were completely, entirely mine for the first time in what felt like years. The idea grew as I changed out of my scrubs in the locker room, pulling on the only nice dress I owned. A simple black sheath I'd bought for my cousin's wedding 3 years ago. It still fit, barely, though I'd lost weight since Derek left. Stress and single motherhood weren't exactly conducive to regular meals or self-care. I studied my reflection in the small mirror above the lockers. Dark circles under my eyes that concealer could only do so much to hide. Hair that needed a trim, but my eyes were still bright green. Still the feature Derek used to say made him fall for me before everything turned dark. The Crimson Room. I'd walked past it countless times on my way to and from the hospital, always glancing at the elegant burgundy awning, the valet stand with its uniformed attendants, the well-dressed patrons disappearing through those polished wooden doors into a world I'd never imagined entering. It was the kind of place where a single appetizer probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a week. The kind of place people like me only saw in movies. But tonight, I thought, as I hailed a cab outside the hospital's main entrance, tonight I was going to do something just for me. Just this once. I'd earned it. The restaurant was everything I'd imagined and more. Warm amber lighting reflected off crystal chandeliers, casting dancing shadows across white tablecloths that looked impossibly crisp and pristine. The air smelled of expensive wine and fresh herbs, undercut with something rich and savory that made my stomach growl despite the nervous flutter in my chest. A pianist played softly in the corner, something classical I didn't recognize, the music barely audible beneath the murmur of refined conversation. Every surface gleamed. Every detail spoke of money, old money, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. The hostess, an elegant woman in a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, gave me a subtle once-over that made me acutely aware of every bargain rack seam in my outfit, every scuff on my only pair of heels. "Do you have a reservation, miss?" "No, Is that okay? Just for one." Her perfectly shaped eyebrow raised fractionally, and I watched something like pity flicker across her professionally neutral expression. "1 moment, please." I stood there, feeling increasingly foolish as she consulted with someone through a nearly invisible earpiece. Around me, couples in designer clothes sipped cocktails and laughed softly, their ease in this environment making my discomfort even more pronounced. A group of businessmen occupied a large table near the window, their watches catching the light as they gestured with wine glasses that probably cost more than my car payment. No one else was dining alone. Of course, no one else was dining alone. What had I been thinking? "We have a table available at the bar," the hostess finally said, her tone suggesting this was a considerable concession, a favor she was granting rather than standard service. "If that's acceptable to you, perfect. Thank you so much." She led me through the main dining room, her heels clicking with military precision against the marble floor. I was hyper-aware of every eye that turned toward us, or perhaps toward me, the woman clearly out of her depth. The bar area turned out to be a long stretch of polished mahogany that gleamed like dark honey, lined with high-backed leather stools that probably cost more than my entire living room set. I claimed one near the end, trying to make myself as small and unobtrusive as possible. The bartender, a young man with slicked-back hair and a crisp white shirt, set down a leather-bound menu and a glass of ice water without comment. His expression was professionally blank, but I caught the slight flicker of assessment in his eyes. He'd already categorized me, I realized. Already knew I didn't belong. I opened the menu and immediately felt my stomach drop through the floor. $38 for a salad, $52 for the cheapest entree, $18 for a glass of house wine. What had I been thinking? This wasn't a celebration. It was financial suicide. I could feed Gemma and myself for a week on what a single meal here would cost. I could put that money toward her new winter coat, the one she'd need when the temperature dropped. I could save it for emergencies, for the inevitable crisis that always seemed to be lurking around the corner. My hand moved to close the menu, to make some excuse and leave before I made an even bigger fool of myself. And then I felt it. That peculiar sensation of being watched, not casually, but intensely, with a focus that raised every hair on the back of my neck. The feeling was so strong, so visceral, that I actually shivered despite the warmth of the restaurant. I turned slowly, my heart suddenly pounding for reasons I couldn't name. He was seated in a private alcove beyond the bar, partially obscured by an ornate wooden screen that provided the illusion of privacy, while still allowing a view of the main space. But there was no question he was looking at me. Directly at me, with an intensity that made my breath catch in my throat. Even from this distance, even in the amber lighting, I could see the sharp planes of his face, the dark suit that probably cost more than I made in 6 months, the way he held himself with absolute certainty. Authority radiated from him like heat from a fire. He wasn't just wealthy, he was powerful, the kind of powerful that made other powerful people nervous. 3 men sat with him at his table, but they might as well have been furniture. His attention was fixed entirely on me, and there was something in his gaze that sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with something far more dangerous. He lifted his wine glass in a small gesture, a silent acknowledgement, before taking a slow sip. His eyes never left mine. I turned back to the bar quickly, my cheeks burning, my heart racing. What was I doing? This was insane. I should leave right now, before whatever this was became something I couldn't control. But my body refused to move. My hands remained on the menu, though I wasn't seeing the words anymore. "The risotto is exceptional tonight." A voice spoke from behind me, so close I could feel the warmth of breath against my ear. Deep, cultured, with the faintest hint of an Italian accent that turned the simple words into something almost intimate. "If you're trying to decide." I turned on the stool, and suddenly he was there, standing close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and dark with notes of sandalwood, and something else I couldn't identify. Up close, he was even more devastating. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out his charcoal suit perfectly. His face was all sharp angles and classical proportions, like something from a Renaissance painting. Strong jaw, high cheekbones, a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled, but would be beautiful when it did. But it was his eyes that held me frozen. Dark, impossibly dark, like looking into a well at midnight. And the way he was looking at me, with an intensity that made me feel simultaneously exposed and protected, terrified and safe. "Thank you," I managed, though my voice came out breathier than I'd intended. I'll keep that in mind." He smiled then, just slightly, and the transformation was startling. Still dangerous, still predatory, but now with a warmth that made something low in my stomach tighten. "First time at the Crimson Room? That obvious?" Not at all. His eyes traveled over my face slowly, deliberately, missing nothing. "I simply make it my business to know everyone who enters my establishment." My breath caught. "Your establishment?" "Gabriel Moretti." He extended his hand, and when I took it automatically, his grip was firm and warm, his thumb brushing across my knuckles in a gesture that felt far too intimate for a first meeting. "I own the Crimson Room. And you are?" "Grace," I said, then immediately regretted giving him my real name. There was something about this man that made every instinct I'd developed over 6 years of nursing, of reading people in crisis, scream danger. "Grace Mitchell. Grace." He repeated my name slowly, as if tasting it, and the way his accent curved around the syllables made it sound like something precious. "A beautiful name for a beautiful woman, though you look uncertain, troubled perhaps." "I'm fine," I said quickly, trying to pull my hand back. He held it a moment longer before releasing it, and I felt the loss of that warmth immediately. "You're dining alone." It wasn't a question. His eyes searched my face, and I had the unsettling feeling he was reading far more than I wanted to reveal. Celebrating something? Or hiding from something? The accuracy of the observation, the way he cut through pretense with surgical precision, made my defenses slam into place. "Does it matter?" "Everything matters," he said quietly, and there was something in his tone that made it sound like a promise or a threat. Especially when it concerns a woman sitting alone in my restaurant looking like she's deciding whether to run. He paused, his gaze intense. "Don't run, Grace. Stay. Have dinner. Allow me to make your evening memorable." "I don't even know you," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. "Then get to know me." He gestured toward his alcove, where the 3 men had discreetly disappeared, leaving an empty table with the remains of an expensive meal. "Join me. I insist." "I can't just—" "You can." His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "And you will. Because you came here tonight for a reason, didn't you? Not just to celebrate, to feel alive, to remember who you are beyond the exhaustion and responsibility." His eyes held mine. "I can give you that, Grace. One evening. No expectations. No obligations. Just dinner with a man who finds you absolutely captivating." Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to refuse, to leave, to run as fast as I could from this man who looked at me like he could see straight through to my soul. But there was another part. A part I'd buried for 2 years beneath diapers and bills and fear, that wanted desperately to say yes. "One dinner," I heard myself say. "Just dinner." Gabriel Moretti's smile was slow and satisfied, like a predator who'd just cornered his prey and knew it. "Just dinner," he agreed, offering his arm. "For now." As I slipped my hand into the crook of his elbow and let him guide me toward the private alcove, I had the distinct feeling I'd just made a choice I couldn't unmake, and the most terrifying part was that I wasn't sure I wanted to. The private alcove felt like stepping into another world. The ornate wooden screen created an intimate cocoon, blocking out the rest of the restaurant while still allowing filtered amber light to cast dancing shadows across the pristine white tablecloth. Gabriel guided me to a chair with his hand on the small of my back, a touch that felt possessive despite its gentleness. The heat of his palm burned through the thin fabric of my dress. "Wine?" he asked, already gesturing to someone I couldn't see. Within seconds, a server appeared as if summoned by thought alone, bearing a bottle with a label I couldn't read in the dim light. Gabriel said something in rapid Italian, and the man nodded, pouring 2 glasses of deep red wine before vanishing as silently as he'd arrived. "I don't usually drink," I said, staring at the glass that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. "Tonight isn't usual, is it?" Gabriel settled into the chair across from me, close enough that our knees almost touched beneath the table. "You're celebrating something. I can see it in your eyes, beneath the exhaustion." The accuracy of his observation unnerved me. "How do you know I'm exhausted?" "The shadows under your eyes, though you've tried to hide them with makeup. The way you move. Like every step requires conscious effort. The calluses on your hands." He reached across the table and caught my wrist before I could pull away, turning my hand palm up. His thumb traced the rough patches where I gripped syringes and pushed medication carts for 12 hours at a stretch. "You work with your hands, long hours, physical labor combined with precision. A nurse, perhaps?" I pulled my hand back, my heart racing. "You're very observant." "I'm a businessman, Grace. Reading people is how I've built my empire." He leaned back, the movement casual, but his eyes remained fixed on my face with that unnerving intensity. "You came here alone, to an expensive restaurant you clearly can't afford, wearing a dress that's beautiful but several years old. You're celebrating something significant, but you have no one to celebrate with. And underneath the uncertainty, there's fear." My throat went dry. "I'm not afraid. Not of me. Not yet, anyway." His smile was dark, knowing. "You're afraid of something else. Someone else." He paused, letting the words hang between us. "Who hurt you, Grace?" "I don't know you well enough to answer that question." "Then let's change that." He raised his glass in a small toast. "To new beginnings and honest conversations." I hesitated, then lifted my own glass. The wine was exquisite, smooth and complex in ways I didn't have words for. It tasted like money, like power, like everything I'd never had and never would. "I became charge nurse today," I said finally, surprised by my own honesty. "At Memorial Grace Hospital, pediatric oncology." Something shifted in Gabriel's expression, a softness I hadn't expected. "You care for children with cancer." "I try to make their lives a little less painful." I took another sip of wine, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. "It's hard work, emotionally devastating most days. But it matters." "You matter," he said quietly, and the way he said it made my breath catch. "Women like you, who dedicate yourselves to others, often forget to take care of themselves." "I have someone I take care of," I said before I could stop myself. "My daughter, Gemma. She's 6. I watched carefully for his reaction. Most men, especially men like Gabriel Moretti, who clearly had power and options, would have immediately lost interest. Single mothers weren't exactly prize catches in the dating world. But Gabriel's expression didn't change except for a slight narrowing of his eyes, an increased intensity in his gaze. "You're a mother." He said it like he was filing away information, categorizing it. "And the father? Gone." The word came out harder than I'd intended. He's not part of our lives anymore. By your choice or his? The personal nature of the question should have offended me. Instead, I found myself answering. Both. He became someone I couldn't let near my daughter. someone dangerous. Gabriel leaned forward, and the air between us suddenly felt charged, electric. Dangerous how? Why do you care? I challenged, feeling the wine loosening my tongue, lowering my defenses. You don't know me. This is just dinner. This stopped being just dinner the moment you walked into my restaurant, Grace. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. The moment I saw you sitting alone at my bar, looking lost and determined all at once, I knew I needed to know you. That's not how the world works, I said, but my voice wavered. Men like you don't pursue women like me. Men like me. He raised an eyebrow, amusement flickering across his features. And what kind of man do you think I am? Rich, powerful, dangerous. The wine was definitely affecting me now. The kind of man who owns restaurants like this and has people who appear and disappear on command. The kind of man who looks at a woman like she's a puzzle to solve or a prize to win. You're not wrong, he admitted, surprising me with his honesty. But you're also not complete. I'm a businessman, yes. I have interests throughout the city. Some of them are entirely legitimate. He paused deliberately. Others less so. My pulse quickened. Are you telling me you're a criminal? I'm telling you I operate in gray areas, that I have power and influence that comes from sources both light and dark. His eyes never left mine. I'm telling you this because I don't want there to be any illusions between us. You deserve to know what you're getting into. I'm not getting into anything, I said quickly. This is just dinner. You said so yourself. I lied. The admission was casual, almost careless. From the moment I saw you, Grace, I wanted you. And I take what I want. I should have stood up. Should have left immediately. Instead, I found myself leaning forward, drawn to him despite every warning signal firing in my brain. You can't just decide you want someone and expect them to fall into your lap. Can I? His smile was predatory now, all pretense of gentleness gone. Tell me you don't feel this thing between us, this pull. Tell me your pulse isn't racing right now, that you're not wondering what it would be like if I reached across this table and kissed you. Heat flooded my face because he was right. God help me, he was completely right. Before I could formulate a response, his phone buzzed. Gabriel glanced at it, and something dark crossed his face. Excuse me 1 moment. He stood and stepped away, speaking in low, rapid Italian into the phone. I couldn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Authority. Command. A hint of barely controlled anger. I took the opportunity to check my own phone. 2 messages from Mrs. Chen. The first was a photo of Gemma, already in her pajamas, grinning at the camera. The second made my blood run cold. Grace, a man came by the apartment asking for you. Said he was an old friend. I didn't let him near Gemma, but he seemed insistent. Should I be worried? My hands started shaking. I knew, with horrible certainty, who that man was. Derek. 2 years of silence, 2 years of rebuilding our lives. And now he'd found us. Grace? Gabriel was suddenly beside me, his hand on my shoulder. What's wrong? You've gone pale. I need to go. I stood abruptly, nearly knocking over my wine glass. I need to get my daughter, right now. His hand caught my wrist, gentle but firm. Tell me what happened. I can't. This isn't your problem. I tried to pull away, but his grip didn't loosen. Grace. His voice was quiet, dangerous. Someone frightened you. Someone threatened your daughter. That makes it my problem. Why? The word came out as almost a sob. Why would you care? You don't even know me. I know enough. He pulled out his phone, already dialing. Where does your daughter live? Give me the address. I'm not telling you where my daughter is, I said, finally yanking my hand free. I don't know you. You just admitted you're involved in criminal activities. For all I know, you're more dangerous than who? His eyes narrowed. Than the man who's looking for her? Grace, listen to me very carefully. I can protect you and your daughter, but I need you to trust me. Trust you? I met you 20 minutes ago. Then trust your instincts. He stepped closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Every instinct you have is telling you I'm dangerous. Yes. But is it telling you I would hurt a child? Is it telling you I would harm you? The terrible thing was, it wasn't. Despite everything, despite the warning signs and red flags, my instincts were telling me that Gabriel Moretti was dangerous to a lot of people, but not to me, not to Gemma. Queens, I whispered. We live in Queens. Apartment 4B on Hillside Avenue. Gabriel's expression shifted into something hard and lethal. He spoke rapidly into his phone in Italian, then switched to English. I need 2 men at that address immediately. Security detail. No one gets near apartment 4B except the mother. He paused, listening. No, Marco, no one. If someone tries, detain them. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He ended the call and turned back to me. My men are already on their way. Your daughter is safe. How can you possibly? Because I have people throughout this city, Grace. Because when I give an order, it's followed without question. He was already guiding me toward the door, his hand firm on my back. My car is out front. This is insane, I muttered. But I was moving with him, letting him lead me. Because what choice did I have? Derek had found us. After 2 years of silence, of restraining orders and changed phone numbers and constant fear, he'd found us. And I had no idea what he wanted. The valet had Gabriel's car waiting before we even reached the curb. A black Mercedes, sleek and expensive, with windows tinted dark enough that I couldn't see inside. Gabriel opened the door for me, and I slid into leather seats that probably cost more than my entire car. He was beside me in seconds, the car pulling smoothly into traffic before I'd even fastened my seatbelt. His driver, a man with cold eyes and an earpiece, navigated the streets with practiced efficiency. Tell me about him, Gabriel said quietly. The father. Derek. The name tasted bitter. We were together for 3 years. He seemed perfect at first, charming, attentive. But he drank, and when he drank, he became someone else. Someone violent. Gabriel's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, just gestured for me to continue. It got worse after Gemma was born. The jealousy, the anger. He'd accuse me of things, of cheating, of trying to keep his daughter from him. One night he came home drunk and... I stopped, the memory making my throat close. I had to take Gemma to the hospital. She was only 4. She'd gotten in the way when he tried to hit me. The temperature in the car seemed to drop 10 degrees. Gabriel's expression was absolutely still, but there was murder in his eyes. I got a restraining order, I continued. We moved, changed numbers, did everything right. He disappeared. I thought it was over, but now he's back, and I don't know what he wants. He wants control, Gabriel said quietly. Men like that always do. They see women and children as possessions, things they own. His hand found mine, warm and solid. But you're not his possession anymore, Grace, and neither is your daughter. You can't just decide that, I said, but there was no conviction in my voice. Watch me. The car pulled up to my building, and I saw immediately that Gabriel hadn't been exaggerating. 2 men in dark suits stood at the entrance, their postures alert, professional. One was speaking into a radio as we approached. Mr. Moretti, he said, nodding respectfully. The building is secure. No one has attempted entry since we arrived. And the man who was here earlier? Gone. We have a description from the neighbor. Caucasian, approximately 6 feet, brown hair, signs of substance abuse. He left when Mrs. Chen wouldn't give him information. I was already moving toward the door, my heart pounding. I needed to see Gemma, needed to hold her, needed to know she was safe. Gabriel's hand caught my elbow. Grace, wait. My daughter is safe. I promise you. His eyes held mine. But we need to talk about what happens next, because Derek will come back. And when he does, I need you to let me handle it. I don't need you to handle my problems, I said, even as part of me wanted desperately to let someone else take control, to not be alone in this fight for once. Maybe not, Gabriel agreed. But Gemma needs me to, and that makes all the difference. Before I could respond, Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, Gemma in her arms. My daughter's face lit up when she saw me. Mommy! I took her from Mrs. Chen, holding her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Hey, baby. I'm here. Everything's okay. There were men outside, Gemma said, her voice small. Mrs. Chen said they were guards, like in princess movies. Something like that, I managed. Gabriel was speaking quietly with Mrs. Chen, and I watched as he pressed something into her hand. Money, probably. She tried to refuse, but he closed her fingers around it with a gentle insistence. For your trouble, he said, and your discretion. Then he turned to me, and his expression was gentle again, the lethal predator hidden behind a mask of concern. Grace, you and Gemma can't stay here tonight. It's not safe. We don't have anywhere else to go, I said quietly. Yes, Gabriel said simply. You do. Gabriel's penthouse was everything I'd imagined wealth could buy, and nothing I'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Manhattan skyline, the city lights stretching out like a carpet of fallen stars. The interior was modern, but warm, with dark wood floors, leather furniture, and art that looked like it belonged in museums. Everything was pristine, sophisticated, and utterly intimidating. Gemma had fallen asleep in my arms during the car ride, exhausted from the excitement and late hour. Gabriel had led us to a guest bedroom without comment, a space larger than my entire apartment, with a bed so soft it felt like sleeping on clouds. I'd tucked her in carefully, kissing her forehead, whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep. Now I stood in the living room, arms wrapped around myself, staring at the city below and trying to process how my celebration dinner had turned into this. Gabriel was in the kitchen, moving with surprising domesticity as he prepared tea. The normalcy of the gesture felt surreal given everything else. She's beautiful, he said quietly, appearing beside me with 2 steaming mugs. Your daughter. She has your eyes. Thank you. I took the tea gratefully, wrapping my cold hands around the warm ceramic. And thank you for this. For all of it. I'll find somewhere else to go tomorrow. A hotel or... You'll stay here. His tone left no room for argument. Both of you. Until this situation with Derek is resolved. I can't just move into your home, I protested. You don't owe me anything. We barely know each other. Then let's change that. Gabriel gestured toward the sofa, and I found myself sitting, my body making decisions my mind was still questioning. He settled beside me, close but not touching, his presence somehow both comforting and unsettling. Tell me about yourself, Grace. The parts that matter. Why do you care? The question came out softer than I'd intended. Really, you could have any woman you wanted. Why are you doing this? Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes studying my face with that intensity that made me feel exposed. Do you believe in fate? I believe in hard work and bad luck, I said. Fate is something people with easier lives get to believe in. He smiled slightly at that. Perhaps. But tonight, when you walked into my restaurant, looking lost and determined and so achingly beautiful, something shifted. I've built an empire, Grace. I've controlled territories and crushed enemies and taken everything I've wanted without hesitation or remorse. But I've never felt this. Felt what? This need to protect, to possess. His hand moved to my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. To keep you safe from everything that's ever hurt you. My breath caught. You don't know what's hurt me. Then tell me. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. Tell me everything, Grace. Let me see all the broken pieces so I can put them back together. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the fear still coursing through my veins. Maybe it was the wine or the lateness of the hour, or the way Gabriel looked at me like I was something precious and rare. Whatever the reason, I found myself talking. I told him about meeting Derek in college, about how charming he'd been at first, how he'd made me feel special and protected, about the slow descent into control and jealousy, the way he'd isolated me from friends and family, about the first time he'd hit me, drunk and furious about an imagined slight, and how I'd convinced myself it was an accident, about Gemma's birth, and how I'd hoped motherhood would change him. It made everything worse, I said quietly. He saw her as competition for my attention, started drinking more, staying out later. The violence escalated. But I kept making excuses because I was terrified of being alone, of failing as a mother. My voice cracked. And then one night, Gemma was 4 years old. She tried to get between us when he was hitting me. He shoved her into the corner of the coffee table. She needed 12 stitches. Gabriel's hand had tightened on his mug until I thought it might shatter. His face was absolutely still, but fury radiated from him in waves. I left that night, I continued. Took Gemma to the hospital, filed a police report, got a restraining order. We moved 3 times in 6 months until I thought we'd finally lost him. 2 years of peace, of rebuilding our lives. And now he's back. He won't hurt you again, Gabriel said quietly, and there was such absolute certainty in his voice that I almost believed him. Or Gemma. I promise you that, Grace. You can't promise that, I said. You don't know Derek. He's persistent, obsessive. He doesn't let go of things he thinks belong to him. Neither do I. Gabriel set down his mug and turned to face me fully. Grace, I need you to understand something. The world I operate in, the gray areas I mentioned, they give me resources and capabilities that normal channels don't. I can protect you in ways the police can't. But you have to trust me. I don't know if I can, I whispered. Trust doesn't come easily anymore. I know. His hand found mine, his fingers intertwining with my own. But I'm asking you to try, for Gemma's sake, if not your own. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. Gabriel glanced at it, and his expression darkened. Excuse me. He stood and walked to the window, speaking in low, rapid Italian. I couldn't understand the words, but the tension in his shoulders was unmistakable. When he ended the call, he stood silent for a long moment, staring out at the city. What is it? I asked, my stomach knotting with fresh dread. Derek was picked up by my men an hour ago, Gabriel said, still not turning around. He was watching this building. The tea mug nearly slipped from my hands. How did he know we were here? He followed us from your apartment. My driver was focused on getting you here quickly and safely. He didn't notice the tail until we'd already arrived. Gabriel turned then, and the expression on his face made my blood run cold. He knows you're with me now, Grace, and that changes things. Changes them how? Derek isn't just a drunk ex-boyfriend with control issues. Gabriel moved closer, and I could see the calculation in his eyes, the careful weighing of information. He's been asking questions about you, about your schedule, your routines. He had photos, Grace, dozens of them. He's been watching you for weeks, maybe months. My hands started shaking. The tea sloshed over the rim of the mug, and Gabriel gently took it from me, setting it aside before I could burn myself. "There's more," he said quietly. "Derek has been talking to people in my world. He's been trying to find leverage, trying to discover who protects what territories, looking for someone who might use you and Gemma to get to me." "Why would anyone care about me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm nobody." "You stopped being nobody the moment you walked into my restaurant." Gabriel's hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "The moment I decided you were mine. In my world, that makes you valuable and dangerous for you." "This is insane," I said, trying to pull away. "I met you 3 hours ago. You can't just decide I'm yours." "Can't I?" His thumbs traced my cheekbones, a gesture that should have been tender but felt possessive. "Grace, I've been looking for you my entire life without knowing it. The moment I saw you, everything clicked into place. Everything made sense." "That's not love," I said desperately. "That's obsession." "Perhaps," he agreed. "But it's also protection. Safety. A life where you and Gemma never have to be afraid again." He paused, his gaze intense. "I can give you everything, Grace. Security, comfort, a future where your daughter grows up protected. All I ask in return is that you let me." "There's always a price," I said, my heart hammering. "What do you really want from me?" Gabriel was silent for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was raw with an honesty that terrified me. "Everything. Your trust, your time, your presence in my life. Eventually, if you'll give it, your heart." His hand slid from my face to my shoulders. "But I'll settle for your agreement to stay here, under my protection, until Derek is no longer a threat." "And how will you make him not a threat?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know the answer. "By making it clear that you and Gemma are under my protection, that anyone who threatens you threatens me." His expression hardened. "In my world, that's usually enough. People don't cross Gabriel Moretti without facing severe consequences. And if it's not enough, if Derek doesn't care about consequences, then I'll ensure he can never threaten you again." The words were soft, almost gentle, but the implication was clear. I should have been horrified, should have grabbed Gemma and run as far and fast as I could. Instead, I found myself asking, "What would you want from me? If I stayed, what would that look like?" Gabriel's eyes darkened with something that might have been triumph, or satisfaction, or hunger. "You'd live here, in the guest suite. Gemma would attend the best private school in the city with security detail. You'd continue working at the hospital if you wanted, or I could find you a position at one of my legitimate businesses if you preferred. You'd have access to my resources, my protection, my world. In exchange for what? Your company, your presence at social events where I need a partner. Your trust, gradually, as you learn. I'm not like the men who've hurt you." He paused. "And eventually, when you're ready, more." "More," I repeated, my mouth dry. "I want you, Grace, in my home, in my life, in my bed eventually. But I'm patient." His hand traced down my arm, his touch burning through the fabric of my dress. "I can wait until you want it too, until you choose it freely." "That sounds like a gilded cage," I whispered. "Perhaps," Gabriel agreed. but it's a cage where you and your daughter are safe, where you never have to worry about bills or restraining orders or drunk ex-boyfriends breaking down your door. His other hand cupped my cheek. Is freedom worth much if you're constantly afraid? The question hit too close to home, because he was right. I'd been free for 2 years, and I'd spent every moment of it looking over my shoulder, jumping at shadows, terrified that Derek would come back. What good was independence when it came with constant terror? I need to think, I said finally. This is too much, too fast. I can't make this decision right now. Take all the time you need, Gabriel said, stepping back and giving me space. The guest suite is yours for as long as you want it. No strings, no expectations, just safety. He paused at the hallway entrance. But Grace? While you're thinking, remember this. You came to my restaurant alone tonight, looking for something. Maybe it was just a celebration. Or maybe it was something more. Maybe you were looking for a way out of the life that's been crushing you. And you think you're that way out? I think I'm an option you didn't know you had, he said quietly. I think I'm a door you didn't know existed. Whether you walk through it or not is entirely your choice. But at least now you know it's there. He left me alone then, retreating to what I assumed was his own bedroom. I stood in the living room for a long time, staring at the city lights, and trying to understand how my life had turned upside down in the span of a single evening. Finally, I went to check on Gemma. She was still sleeping peacefully, her small body barely making a dent in the enormous bed. I climbed in beside her, pulling her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. I'll keep you safe, I whispered, no matter what it takes. Even if it meant making a deal with a devil in an expensive suit, even if it meant trading one kind of cage for another. Because Gabriel was right about one thing. Freedom meant nothing if we were never truly safe. My phone buzzed softly. A text from an unknown number. Sleep well, Grace. Tomorrow we discuss terms. GM. I stared at the message for a long moment before deleting it. But I couldn't delete the feeling it left behind. A mixture of fear and anticipation, dread, and something that felt dangerously like hope. Outside, the city glittered like a promise or a threat. And somewhere in those shadows, Derek was out there, watching, waiting. But so was Gabriel Moretti, with all his dark power and dangerous protection. I just had to decide which devil was worse. Morning arrived with the kind of golden light that only came through floor-to-ceiling windows 30 stories above the city. I woke to find Gemma already up, sitting cross-legged on the plush carpet, playing with a dollhouse that definitely hadn't been there last night. The thing was massive, Victorian style, with intricate details and furniture that looked handcrafted. Mommy, look. She turned to me with shining eyes. Mr. Gabriel brought this for me. He said every princess needs a castle. My heart clenched. Gemma, sweetie, you can't just accept expensive gifts from me? Gabriel's voice came from the doorway, and I turned to find him leaning against the frame, dressed casually in dark jeans and a black Henley that somehow made him look even more dangerous than the suit had. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd just showered, and the domestic intimacy of the moment made my stomach flip. I hope you don't mind. I had it delivered early this morning. Gemma and I have been having quite the conversation. I sat up quickly, acutely aware that I was still in last night's dress, wrinkled and inappropriate. You should have woken me. You needed rest. Besides, Gemma is excellent company. He smiled at my daughter, a genuine warmth that transformed his face. She's been telling me about her school and her favorite books. Did you know she wants to be a veterinarian? I want to help animals, Gemma said seriously, because they can't help themselves. Something passed across Gabriel's face, an emotion I couldn't quite read. That's very noble. The world needs more people who want to help those who can't protect themselves. The weight of his gaze shifted to me, and I understood the double meaning. He saw us as things that needed protecting. Gemma and me both. Helpless creatures in need of a savior. The thought should have angered me. Instead, it just made me tired. "There are clothes for you in the closet," Gabriel said, his tone shifting to something more businesslike. "Various sizes. I wasn't sure what would fit. Take your time getting ready. Breakfast will be waiting whenever you're ready." He left before I could protest, and I discovered he wasn't exaggerating. The walk-in closet adjacent to the guest room was stocked with designer clothing, all with tags still attached. Dresses, casual wear, even undergarments in what turned out to be exactly my size. The level of preparation was both impressive and deeply unsettling. I chose the most conservative option, dark jeans and a soft gray sweater, and took a quick shower in the marble bathroom that was larger than my bedroom at home. By the time Gemma and I made it to the kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee and cooking bacon was almost overwhelming. Gabriel stood at the stove, working with the easy confidence of someone comfortable in his own space. A woman in her 50s, dressed professionally, was setting the table with what looked like fine china. "Grace, Gemma, this is Maria. She manages my household." Gabriel didn't look up from whatever he was cooking. "Maria, this is Grace Mitchell and her daughter Gemma. They'll be staying with us indefinitely." "Welcome," Maria said warmly, but I caught the quick, assessing look she gave me. She'd probably seen dozens of women pass through Gabriel's life. I wondered how long it would take before she realized I wasn't just another conquest. Breakfast was surprisingly normal. Gemma chattered about the dollhouse while Gabriel listened with apparent interest, asking questions that showed he was actually paying attention. Maria served fresh fruit, perfectly cooked eggs, and bacon that was crispy exactly how I liked it. The domesticity of it all felt like a fever dream. "Gemma," Gabriel said as we were finishing, "would you like to see the building's play area? It's on the rooftop. Maria's grandson is there this morning. I thought you two might get along." Gemma's eyes lit up. "Can I, Mommy?" I hesitated, every protective instinct screaming. But Gemma needed normalcy, needed to be a child, and not just a pawn in whatever game the adults were playing. "Okay, but you stay where Maria can see you." "I'll watch her like she's my own granddaughter," Maria promised, and something in her eyes made me believe her. Once they'd left, the apartment fell into a heavy silence. Gabriel poured himself more coffee, his movements deliberate and controlled. "We need to talk about Derek." My stomach nodded. "What about him?" "He's currently in a secure location, one of my properties." Gabriel's tone was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing a business transaction rather than kidnapping. He's been encouraged to explain his intentions. "You're holding him prisoner?" My voice came out higher than I'd intended. "I'm keeping him away from you and Gemma while we determine the extent of the threat." Gabriel finally looked at me, his dark eyes unreadable. "Grace, this is worse than I initially thought. Derek isn't just a drunk ex-boyfriend. He's in debt. Serious debt. To very dangerous people." The kitchen tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the counter. "What kind of debt?" "Gambling, primarily. About $200,000 to a loan shark connected to the Volkov family." Gabriel set down his coffee with careful precision. "The Russian mob, Grace. They've been using Derek to gather information about you, about your schedule and routines. They know you work at Memorial Grace. They know Gemma's school. They've been planning something." "Planning what?" The words barely made it past my lips. "Leverage. Against me." He moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the bright morning light. "Word travels fast in my world. By now, everyone knows you spent the night here, that you're under my protection. The Volkovs see you as a weakness they can exploit. Derek was their way in." I laughed, the sound bordering on hysterical. "This is insane. Yesterday I was a nurse celebrating a promotion. Now I'm caught in some mob war because I had dinner at the wrong restaurant? No. Gabriel's hand caught my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. You're caught in this because Derek sold you out to pay his debts. Because he told them you were alone, unprotected, vulnerable. They would have come for you and Gemma eventually, whether you'd met me or not. The room spun. I pulled away from him, wrapping my arms around myself. You're saying I was already in danger. I'm saying I may have accelerated the timeline, but I didn't create the danger. His voice softened slightly. Grace, you need to understand. In my world, perception is everything. Right now, every criminal organization in this city believes you're mine. That makes you both protected and targeted. So what do? I asked desperately. What can I possibly do against the Russian mob? You stay here. You accept my protection. You let me handle this. Gabriel moved closer again, and this time I didn't pull away. I have resources, Grace. Alliances. Ways of making problems disappear. You mean you'll kill them? It wasn't a question. If necessary. He didn't flinch from the accusation. To protect you and Gemma? Yes, without hesitation or remorse. I should have been horrified, should have grabbed my daughter and run screaming. Instead, I found myself asking, what do you want in return? Gabriel smiled slightly, and it was the smile of a predator who'd been waiting for exactly this question. I told you last night, your presence in my life, your trust, your acceptance that you belong to me now. People don't belong to other people, I said weakly. In my world, they do. His hand found my waist, pulling me closer. And you're in my world now, Grace. The moment Derek involved you with the Volkovs, the moment I decided you were worth protecting, you crossed a line. There's no going back. That's not fair, I whispered. No, he agreed. But it's reality. You can fight it, rage against it, hate me for it. But the facts remain. You and Gemma are in danger. I can eliminate that danger, but it comes at a price. My freedom. Your freedom to be constantly afraid. Yes. His other hand cupped my face, his touch surprisingly gentle. Grace, I'm offering you something precious. Security. Safety. A life where your daughter grows up protected by the most powerful criminal organization in the city. Where you never have to worry about bills or evictions or drunk ex-boyfriends. All I ask is that you stop fighting me and accept what we both know is true. What's that? My voice was barely audible. That you're mine now. That you were always going to be mine from the moment you walked into my restaurant. His thumb traced my lower lip. That some part of you wants this. Wants to surrender the burden of always being strong. Always being alone. Wants someone else to carry the weight for once. Tears burned behind my eyes because he was right. God help me. He was completely right. I was so tired of being strong, of fighting every battle alone, of lying awake at night, terrified of every sound. The offer of surrender was intoxicating. What about Derek? I asked. What about him? Gabriel's expression hardened. He sold you and your daughter to the Russian mob to pay his gambling debts. What happens to him is entirely your choice. The power in that statement was dizzying. My choice? You're mine now, Grace. That means your enemies are my enemies. Your pain becomes my pain. Derek hurt you. Hurt Gemma. His eyes were cold, lethal. Tell me what you want me to do with him, and it's done. I thought about Derek shoving Gemma into the table, about the hospital visits and restraining orders, about 2 years of looking over my shoulder, about last night, learning he'd been watching us, stalking us, selling us out to criminals. I want him gone, I heard myself say. I want to never worry about him again. Done. Gabriel pulled out his phone, typing something quickly. He'll disappear. No body, no evidence, no loose ends, just gone. The casual efficiency of it should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Just like that. Just like that. He pocketed his phone and returned his attention to me. Now, we need to discuss the Volkovs. They won't be satisfied with Derek's disappearance. They'll want compensation for their lost investment. Or they'll want you. What do they want me for? Leverage against me, a way to control my operations, or simply revenge for the insult of taking what they'd already claimed. Gabriel's jaw tightened. I won't let them have you. So what happens now? Now we go to war. He said it simply, like discussing the weather. I'll call in every alliance, every favor owed. The Volkovs will learn that taking what's mine comes with consequences they can't afford. People will die, I said. Yes. He didn't sugarcoat it. People who would have killed you and Gemma without a second thought. People who trade in human suffering. I won't lose sleep over their deaths, Grace. And eventually, neither will you. Before I could process that statement, his phone rang. Gabriel glanced at the screen, and his expression shifted to something cold and dangerous. Answer it, someone said in the background, a voice I didn't recognize. Gabriel put it on speaker. Moretti. A man's voice, heavy with a Russian accent. We need to discuss the woman and child you've taken into your home. There's nothing to discuss, Volkov. Gabriel's voice was ice. They're under my protection. That's the end of it. Is it? The Russian laughed. The woman's ex-boyfriend was our asset. You've stolen our property. Grace Mitchell was never your property. Yet here we are. Her debt remains unpaid. $200,000, plus interest. A pause. Unless you'd like to settle her account? My blood ran cold. They were treating me like a commodity, a thing to be bought and sold. I don't negotiate with parasites, Gabriel said flatly. Grace owes you nothing. Derek's debts died with him. With him? Another laugh. So you've killed our asset. That's unfortunate and expensive. I think the price just went up, Moretti. $500,000 for the woman. Or we take her ourselves and teach you about respecting other people's investments. Gabriel's hand found mine, his grip almost painfully tight. Try it. Come for what's mine. See what happens. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You touch Grace or her daughter, and I'll burn your entire organization to the ground. Every asset, every business, every family member. I'll make you wish you'd never heard her name. Big words, but the Russian's voice had lost some of its confidence. We'll see how big you talk when your woman is bleeding in front of you. The line went dead. Gabriel stood perfectly still for a long moment, his hand still gripping mine. Then he pulled me close, his lips against my hair. It started. What has? The war. He pulled back, his eyes searching mine. Grace, you need to understand. The next few weeks will be dangerous. Very dangerous. The Volkovs will come for you, for Gemma. They'll use every resource they have. Then let me go, I said desperately. Take Gemma and me somewhere safe, away from all of this. There is nowhere safe. Not anymore. His hands framed my face. They know about you now. Running will only make you easier targets. The only way through this is to fight, to show them that taking you costs more than they're willing to pay. And if they don't care about the cost, Gabriel's smile was terrifying. Then I'll make sure they don't survive to regret it. The next 3 days passed in a blur of controlled chaos. Gabriel's penthouse transformed into something resembling a military command center. Men in dark suits came and went at all hours, speaking in low voices about territories and shipments, and things I tried not to think too hard about. Maria kept Gemma occupied and oblivious. baking cookies and playing games in the kitchen, while the adults discussed violence in hushed tones. I tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy, calling the hospital to request emergency leave. My supervisor, Linda, had been understanding but concerned. "Grace, are you okay? You sound different." "I'm fine," I'd lied. "Just a family emergency. I'll be back as soon as I can." But I wasn't sure I would be back. Wasn't sure I could go back to that life now that I'd seen this one. Now that I understood how much danger we'd been in all along. Gabriel was meticulous in his preparations. Security cameras were installed at every entrance. Armed guards rotated shifts outside the penthouse. My phone was replaced with one that Gabriel assured me was completely secure. When I'd asked what that meant, he'd simply said, "It means the Volkovs can't use it to track you." The realization that they'd probably been tracking my old phone, listening to my conversations, knowing my every move, made my skin crawl. On the third night, Gabriel called me into his study. It was the first time I'd seen the room, a space that was unmistakably his. Dark wood, leather chairs, bookshelves filled with volumes in multiple languages. A massive desk held several monitors showing security feeds from various locations throughout the city. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. His tone was businesslike, almost cold, and I felt the distance between us like a physical thing. I sat, folding my hands in my lap to keep them from shaking. "What's happened?" "The Volkovs made their first move." Gabriel turned one of the monitors toward me. The screen showed grainy footage of men approaching the hospital, my hospital. "They went to Memorial Grace this morning, asked questions about you, your schedule, your friends, whether you had family in the area." My stomach dropped. "Did they hurt anyone?" "No. My people intercepted them before they could get far." His jaw tightened. "But they're escalating, Grace. They're not going to stop until they have you, or until I make it too costly to continue." "So make it too costly," I said, surprised by the steel in my own voice. "You said you could protect us." "Protect us?" Something flickered in Gabriel's eyes. Approval, perhaps. "That's what I intend to do. But it requires you to trust me completely, to do exactly what I say, when I say it, without question." "Can you do that?" I thought about Gemma, asleep in the next room, about the life I wanted for her, safe and free from fear. "Yes." "Good." Gabriel stood and moved around the desk, leaning against it so he was close enough to touch. "Tomorrow night I'm hosting a gathering. Leaders from every major organization in the city will be there. The Italians, the Irish, the Chinese, even some of the smaller independent operators." He paused. "You'll be there with me." Why? The thought of being surrounded by criminals made my pulse race. What purpose would that serve? To make a statement, to show everyone that you're not just under my protection, you're mine, untouchable. Anyone who comes for you will face the consequences from not just me, but from everyone who values their alliance with me. His hand found mine, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "I'm calling in every favor, Grace, leveraging every relationship I've built over 20 years in this business. The Volkovs will find themselves completely isolated, with enemies on all sides." "And all I have to do is stand beside you and smile?" I asked bitterly. "No." His other hand tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his eyes. "You have to convince them that you chose this, that you're not a prisoner or a victim, but a woman who knows exactly what I am and accepts it. Wants it, even." His voice dropped lower. "Can you do that, Grace? Can you pretend to be mine convincingly enough to fool the most dangerous men in the city?" The word pretend hung between us, heavy with implications, because we both knew it wouldn't entirely be pretending. The past 3 days had shown me sides of Gabriel I hadn't expected. The way he was gentle with Gemma, patient with her endless questions. The way he'd held me last night when a nightmare about Derek had torn me from sleep. His presence solid and comforting without being demanding. The way he looked at me sometimes, like I was something precious he was terrified of losing. "I can do it," I whispered. "Good." But he didn't move away. Instead, his hand slid from my chin to cup the back of my neck, his fingers tangling in my hair. "Grace, I need you to understand something. This gathering tomorrow, it's not just for show. Once I claim you publicly in front of these people, there's no taking it back. You'll be marked as mine forever in their eyes. Even if you leave, even if you hate me, you'll always be Gabriel Moretti's woman. That means protection, but it also means danger. It means being a target for anyone who wants to hurt me. I'm already a target," I pointed out. "Not like this. Not permanently." His eyes searched mine. "I'm giving you one last chance to walk away. I can move you and Gemma somewhere safe, somewhere far from here. New identities. Fresh start. You'd be alone, but you'd be free of all this." The offer was genuine, I could see that, and terrifying in its implications, because it meant admitting what we both knew, that after tomorrow there would be no escape, no fresh start, no freedom. "And the Volkovs?" I asked. "Would they stop hunting us?" "Eventually, once they realized the cost wasn't worth the prize." Gabriel's expression darkened. "But it would take time. Months, maybe years of looking over your shoulder." I thought about the past 2 years, the constant fear that had been my companion. The way I jumped at shadows, checked locks obsessively, woke up terrified at every sound. The thought of doing that again, possibly forever, made my chest tight. "I'll stay," I said. "I'll do whatever you need me to do tomorrow night." Gabriel's hand tightened in my hair, and for a moment I thought he might kiss me. Instead, he rested his forehead against mine, his breathing slightly unsteady. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," I said. "You might regret this." "Never." The certainty in his voice made something warm unfurl in my chest. "You and Gemma are the best things that have ever walked into my life, Grace. I will never regret protecting you." Before I could respond, one of his phones rang. Not the sleek smartphone he used for normal calls, but an older model that looked deliberately plain. Gabriel's expression shifted instantly, all softness vanishing. "What?" He listened for a moment, then swore viciously in Italian. "When? How many?" Another pause. "I'm on my way." He ended the call and was already moving toward the door, pulling a gun from a desk drawer with practiced efficiency. "What's wrong?" I stood, fear spiking through me. "The Volkovs hit one of my warehouses. 4 of my men are dead." His voice was flat, emotionless, but his eyes were pure fury. "They're trying to provoke me into making a mistake before tomorrow's gathering. Are you going there?" The thought of him walking into danger made panic claw at my throat. "I have to. My men need to see I'm not hiding." He checked the gun's magazine, then holstered it beneath his jacket. "Stay here with Gemma. The security is airtight. No one gets through that door without my authorization." "Gabriel." I caught his arm as he passed. "Be careful, please." He stopped, and for a moment his expression softened. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. "Worried about me, Grace?" "Yes," I admitted. "Is that so surprising?" "No." He leaned down and pressed his lips to my forehead, a gesture that felt more intimate than any kiss. "Just unexpected, and dangerously addictive." He pulled back, his eyes holding mine. "I'll be back before morning. Maria knows what to do if anything happens." "What could happen? You said the security was—" "It is. But I don't leave anything to chance where you're concerned." He was at the door now. All business. Lock this behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Maria or myself. Understood?" I nodded, and he was gone. The hours that followed were the longest of my life. I checked on Gemma obsessively, watching her sleep peacefully, unaware of the violence being done in her name. Maria appeared periodically, bringing tea I didn't drink and reassurances I didn't believe. "He's done this 1,000 times," she said gently. "Mr. Moretti knows how to handle himself." "Those other times, was he distracted by worry about someone back home?" I asked. Maria's expression softened. "No, which is why he'll be extra careful tonight. He has something to come home to now." Around 3 a.m, I heard movement at the door. My heart leaped into my throat until I heard Gabriel's voice giving the security code. I was on my feet immediately, rushing to the entrance. He looked like he'd walked through hell. His jacket was gone, his shirt torn and stained with what I hoped wasn't his blood. There was a cut above his eyebrow, still bleeding slightly, and his knuckles were raw and bruised. "Oh my God," I breathed, reaching for him. "It's not as bad as it looks," he said. But he let me lead him to the kitchen, let me press a clean towel against the cut on his forehead. Most of this isn't my blood. That should have horrified me. Instead, I found myself asking, "Did you get them? The ones who killed your men?" "Some of them." His hand found my waist, holding me steady as I cleaned the wound. "The rest ran, but they delivered a message first." "What message?" Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was deadly serious. "They know about Gemma's school. They know her schedule, her teacher's name, the route you take to pick her up." Ice flooded my veins. "They're going after her. They're trying to frighten you, to make you leave me, thinking that's the only way to keep her safe." His grip tightened on my waist. "But we both know that's not true. You're only safe together, under my protection." "So, what do we do?" "Tomorrow night, at the gathering, we make it clear that anyone who threatens Gemma is declaring war on every organization in this city." Gabriel's eyes were hard, determined. "And we make sure the Volkovs understand they've already lost." I set aside the bloody towel and looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who'd killed for me tonight. Who would kill again without hesitation. Who'd turned his entire world upside down for a woman he'd known less than a week. "Gabriel," I said softly, "why are you really doing this? I told you." "No, the real reason. Not the possessive crime lord routine or the protection speech. The truth." He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then his hand came up to cup my face, his touch gentle despite the violence still fresh on his skin. "Because when you walked into my restaurant, you looked lost. And I realized I'd been lost too, for years. I just hadn't noticed." His thumb traced my lower lip. "I've built an empire, Grace. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, more power than most people dream of. But I've never had anything that mattered. Not really. Not until you." "That's insane," I whispered. "You don't even know me." "I know enough. I know you're strong enough to leave an abusive relationship and rebuild your life. I know you work yourself to exhaustion for your daughter. I know you came to my restaurant alone because you wanted just once to do something for yourself." His forehead touched mine. "I know you're terrified right now, but you're still standing here, still fighting for your daughter, still refusing to break. That's everything I need to know." Tears burned behind my eyes. "This is too fast, too much." "Yes," he agreed. "But we don't get to choose our timing, Grace. Sometimes fate doesn't ask permission." Before I could respond, before I could analyze or question or push him away, Gabriel closed the distance between us and kissed me. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was claiming, possessive, a promise and a threat wrapped together. His hand tangled in my hair, holding me still as his mouth moved against mine with devastating certainty. And God help me, I kissed him back, poured every ounce of fear and frustration and desperate need into that kiss. Because he was right about one thing. We were past the point of pretending. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His eyes were dark, dangerous, full of promises that both terrified and thrilled me. "Tomorrow night," he said, his voice rough. "Tomorrow night, you stand beside me, and we end this. Together." "Together," I echoed, and sealed both our fates. The dress Gabriel had chosen for me was a masterpiece of calculated seduction. Deep crimson silk that clung to every curve, with a neckline that was demure from the front, but revealed my entire back. Diamond earrings that probably cost more than my car sat heavy against my neck. My hair had been styled by a professional Maria brought in, swept up in an elegant twist that exposed the column of my throat. I looked like I belonged in Gabriel's world, like I was born to stand beside a man who controlled half the city's underworld. The woman staring back at me in the mirror was a stranger. "You look beautiful, Mommy," Gemma said from the doorway, her eyes wide. She was already in her pajamas, ready for bed even though it was barely 7. Maria would stay with her tonight, along with 4 armed guards Gabriel trusted with his life. "Thank you, baby." I knelt carefully, mindful of the dress, and pulled her close. "You'll be good for Maria, won't you?" "I always am." She wrapped her small arms around my neck. "Mommy, are you scared?" The question caught me off guard. I'd tried so hard to shield her from everything happening. "Why would you think I'm scared?" "Because you hug me different now. Tighter. Like you're afraid I'll disappear." Her green eyes, so like mine, were far too perceptive for a 6-year-old. "But Mr. Gabriel won't let anything bad happen. He promised." "He did. Yesterday, when you were sleeping. I asked him if the bad man was coming back. She said it so matter-of-factly, and my heart shattered. He said no. He said anyone who tries to hurt us will have to go through him first, and he's really big and strong, so I think we're safe." Tears threatened to ruin my carefully applied makeup. "We are safe, I promise." "I know." She kissed my cheek and pulled back. "I like it here, Mommy. Is it okay if I like it?" "Of course it's okay, sweetheart." "Good, because I like Mr. Gabriel too. He's nice to us." She hesitated. "Is he going to be my new daddy?" The question hung in the air, impossible to answer. Because what could I say? That Gabriel Moretti, crime lord and killer, might very well become exactly that? That I was falling for him despite every rational instinct screaming at me to run? "I don't know," I said honestly. "Would you want that?" Gemma considered this with the seriousness she brought to all important decisions. "Only if he makes you smile like you do when he's here. You don't smile much anymore, Mommy. But with him, you do." Before I could process that devastating observation, Gabriel appeared in the doorway. He wore a black tuxedo that had been tailored to perfection, emphasizing the breadth of his shoulders and his lean, powerful frame. His dark hair was swept back, his jaw clean-shaven, and he looked every inch the dangerous, sophisticated predator he was. Our eyes met, and something electric passed between us. Heat and promise, and the memory of last night's kiss. "Gemma," he said, his voice softening in that way it only did around my daughter. "Time for bed, princess. Your mother and I have business to attend to." "Okay." She hugged me one more time, then surprised us both by going to Gabriel and hugging him too. "Be safe, both of you." Gabriel's expression transformed, something raw and unguarded crossing his face as he returned the embrace. "Always, I promise." Maria appeared to collect Gemma, and then it was just the two of us. Gabriel extended his hand, and I took it, letting him pull me close. "You're stunning," he said quietly, his eyes traveling over me with undisguised hunger. "Every man in that room tonight will want you, and every one of them will know they can't have you." "Because I'm yours," I said, testing the words. "Because you're mine," he confirmed, his hand settling possessively on my lower back. "Are you ready for this?" "No, but I'll do it anyway." His smile was fierce with approval. "That's my Grace." The gathering was held at an exclusive club Gabriel owned in the heart of Manhattan. The building's exterior was understated, but inside was pure opulence. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, artwork that belonged in museums. We entered through a private entrance where security was so tight it made airport checkpoints look casual. The main room was already filled with people when we arrived. I recognized some faces from news reports, others from Gabriel's security briefings over the past few days. These were the power players, the ones who controlled territories and industries through violence and intimidation. Men in expensive suits who smiled while discussing murder. Women draped in designer clothes and diamonds, their beauty hiding deadly intelligence. Every eye turned toward us as we entered. Gabriel's hand on my back was steady, reassuring. He led me through the crowd with absolute confidence, stopping to make introductions, to exchange pleasantries that were really veiled threats and promises. I smiled and nodded and played my part, the devoted woman by the powerful man's side. "Grace, this is Antonio Castellano," Gabriel said, introducing me to a silver-haired man with cold eyes. "He controls the waterfront operations." "Charming," Castellano said, taking my hand and pressing his lips to my knuckles. "Moretti, you didn't mention your companion was so beautiful." "I don't share details about what's mine," Gabriel said smoothly, but there was steel underneath. "Grace is off limits to everyone. I'm making that clear tonight." Castellano's eyebrows raised. "That's serious?" "That's serious." As we moved through the room, the pattern repeated. Gabriel introducing me, making it clear I was under his protection, watching as his message spread through the crowd like wildfire. By the time we reached the private balcony overlooking the main floor, everyone knew. Grace Mitchell belonged to Gabriel Moretti. Untouchable. Sacred. "They're here," Gabriel said quietly, his eyes on the entrance below. "The Volkovs."